place 4 or 5 months ago. We got a heard of a last minute thing, travel thing. It was a 7-day cruise up in Muncie for $45. Wow. So we jumped on it. It was like three weeks or so before it left. We heard about it. So we did, and I usually have avoided Alaska because I always wanted to go tropical instead of cold, but it was just amazing to go see the places and just how beautiful it was and everything. So it was really something.
All right, I think from our end, we're probably good. You ready for recruiting? I think we're good from our end.
We're ready. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone being here. We'll call the meeting to order, and I will start with the roll call of our members. Down here on my far right, we have Shelley Nazer. Next to her, Brian Marble, the vice chair. To my left is our newest alternate member, Robert Pinky. I appreciate it. Welcome to here. Next to him, Bob Washburn, also our alternate, but with Tyler being out today, he got excused. We'll excuse him because he contacted me that he was with his work. He had to leave immediately for the airport for a flight to California, so he wouldn't make it here tonight. He was trying to get out of it, but he couldn't. And then we have Bob Washburn, and then Joe Chambers, usually a few minutes behind. So, and if for any reason Joe doesn't make it, then we would pull you into service. But,
just to clarify, he won't be able to vote until he does the training.
oh, okay.
So
All
he's
right.
more than, sit up there and stuff. So yeah, but
Okay.
once he does the training.
Well, then we still encourage him to participate if there's questions or ideas or comments. So, okay.
He has training.
And there he is right there. So the instruction. Okay. We'll get you squared away. Joe, how are you? Great to see you. Joe. So with that, we'll give Joe a minute to get settled, and then Brian Marble will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You wait while you're standing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, I think the first thing we're going to look at is a review of the minutes. So if everybody's had a chance to look at those, if anybody had any corrections or anything.
I just have a couple little typo things, Ty. Line 80, I think probably should be city zoning rather than city zone. And line 133, it reads that the commission has been working, so probably has rather than and. And 137, it's all past tense except for the word like, so I would just change that to like.
Thank you.
Others?
I didn't see any of those myself.
You're keeping Tyler on his toes.
Yeah, it's great. It's a tough feat. I know. I took minutes before, and it's a lot of work. So thank you, Ty.
All right, if that looks okay to everyone, I would entertain a motion regarding approval of the minutes.
I propose that we accept the minutes as been with corrections from Shelley Nazer, as they are for
October 26th.
October 26, 2022.
I'll second.
Second, first by motion by Brian Marble, and second by Shelley Nazer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'll abstain because I wasn't here for that time. Thank you. Okay. We'll move to the public comments portion, which we don't really have a large public gathering tonight. But if we have anything in the way of emails or text or phone calls, came in.
I don't have anything showing up.
Super. Thank you, Scarlett. All right. We will close the public comments portion of the meeting. We have no public hearing taking place tonight, no legislative action to take place. So we will move on to the administrative action, item number 1. This is for Rocky Hollow Estate subdivision, an amended final plat.
Chair,
Yes,
could we consider item number 2? The representative for item number 1's not here yet. And I'm
okay.
not sure if they will, but John Harrop is here for item number 2.
Okay, that sounds great.
Well, you need to ask your commission. I'm just making a request.
Okay.
I make a motion that we move to item 2 and put item 1 behind that.
Okay. Second. We have a motion to move to item number 2, and then come back to number 1. We have a by Joe Chambers. We have a second by Bob Washburn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think they might be outside when I came in, but maybe they're just giving us a few minutes, but that would be great. So let me move to item number 2, the Providence Gateway subdivision phase in amended final plat. The Providence City Planning Commission will review, consider, and may take action on an amended final plat for the Providence Gateway subdivision phase in partial amended number 1 by removing the live work designation for units 69 through 76 located in the general area of 28 North Gateway Drive. Scarlett, I invite you up to give us a little bit of a review for what you have in regards to this.
Thank you. So I hope you all got the staff report in their agenda packet. Let's go around with all the pages. I made sure, so I hope it all went through. Just to summarize this request, the building code governs townhome construction and live work unit construction. And there are some requirements in the live work unit construction that are not applicable to townhomes. The developer would like to build all units as townhomes. The exterior of units 69 through 76 will be constructed as shown on the plan submitted with the original final plat. So, excuse me, everything that was approved with their original request and site plan application will stay. The only difference is the technical designation of those units from live work to townhome.
So the elevations won't change.
No.
Pictures are not.
Yeah, well, I think there's a slight change on a window, but it's a structural change, so it won't, it doesn't change the character of the way this looks.
And this isn't a zoning, it's not an LCR to,
No, we're not changing zoning or anything. We're just changing, and then there's a thing called an internal lot restriction, and it goes on a final plat. It's a note on a final plat. If you look on page 2 of 4 under the findings of fact, number 4, it talks about an internal lot restriction means a platted note, platted demarcation, or platted designation that runs with the land and creates a restriction that is enclosed within the perimeter of the lot described on the plat, or designates a development condition that is enclosed within the perimeter of the lot described on the plat. So that's what we're talking about. We're only talking about a designation that applies to, in this case, it says lots, but since they're townhomes, we're referring to them as units, to those 69 through 76. So as far as our findings go, we look at Utah Code Title 10, Chapter 9A, Part 6, which is subdivisions. We look at our city code 2-4-1, which establishes the planning commission as the land use authority for all subdivisions. We also look at the general plan and master plan. As I just read, we look at the definition for an internal lot restriction, and then we look at Utah Code 10-9A-608, which is subdivision amendments. Some subdivision amendments require a public hearing. This one does not. It says a public hearing requirement of subsection 1D does not apply, and a land use authority may consider at a public meeting, which is what we're holding right now, an owner's petition for a subdivision amendment if the petition speaks to, on a lot owned by the petitioning fee owner, adjust an internal lot restriction imposed by the local political subdivision. So that's what we're doing tonight. That's why there's no public hearing associated with this. The land use authority approval of the vacation or amendment of a plat, you can approve it if you find, and so when you make your motion, you don't have Tyler here, so somebody else will get this chore. When you make your motion, you'll have to find, if you choose to approve it, you'll have to find good cause for the approval. There is no public street or municipal utility easement that is being vacated or amended as part of this. And then Providence City Code 1133 lists the requirements for a final plat. So in conclusion, you are the appropriate, we do have ordinances that govern subdivisions in Providence City. You are the appropriate land use authority for subdivision. Nothing has changed as far as the general plan and master plan remarks for this development. The one that is the most important, again, is number 4, the Providence Gateway subdivision phase N plat recorded June 30th, 2021 has an internal lot restriction for lots 69 through 76. Note 6 states total units 38, live work units 8, 69 to 76, townhome units 30, lots 77 through 106. The petitioner is requesting the note be changed to total units equal 38 townhomes, and then townhome units 38, lots 69 through 106. And the proposed map, as I stated earlier, the Planning Commission is the land use authority for subdivision, and you will need to find good cause for the amendment. The proposed plat meets the requirements as far as a final plat goes. And as on our conditions, Aaron Walker submitted his review letter and his comments, project comments that would be addressed at a future submittal are just the corrections on the submitted partially amended plat indicate there are now no units within this development designated as live work units. Building 13 is now approved as town units only. So that's from Aaron, and from the staff, the rest of the staff, I didn't receive any additional comments. And again, one of the conditions would be that you would find good cause exists prior to approving the proposed amendment. And then our final one is the applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, codes, and ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So I can answer any questions, or we do have a representative from Providence Gateway North. John Harrop is here.
Thank you, Scarlett, very much.
Thank you.
Don't leave too soon, Jessica. I'll open it up for questions for Scarlett before we invite John.
The difference in the building between, I understand there's nothing changed on the outside. Something's changed on the inside. Is there any structural changes going to be made? Can they do a lighter duty trusses or whatever?
No, it's more to do with, separation, like fire code thing, and I can't remember the building code. The building code treats it as a commercial structure instead of a residential structure, the whole unit.
How about tax wise?
Tax-wise,
Yeah, it would be split.
I'm not sure how the county looks at it tax-wise, but I know lending-wise, oftentimes the lender will want to treat it as a commercial loan instead of a residential home loan. So that live-work designation does have some impact other than just the building code, but, and John can clarify if I've misstated there, but that's my understanding.
Well, the other thing also was whoever bought those didn't have to run a business in it.
No.
It could just be a unit,
Right,
but it gave them the right to operate a business out of there. It gave them the opportunity to have signage up in front of their unit, that faced the street.
but everyone in there has the opportunity to run a business as a home business.
Right.
And so the only advantage that these units had were that they were facing the street. And as long as their sign met our home business signs and their homeowners association, they could put a sign where it would be much more visible than other places, so.
But our codes wouldn't allow for someone on the interior to put up a sign in front of over their door or something like that, or promoting their business on their railing, or if it was
We would allow it in their window, but I don't know what the
maybe the
homeowners,
HOA would.
yes.
Okay.
And is there an option to have a separate living area separate from the building or from the commercial, or is that all definitely
It's all connected, and actually in this particular zone, which is, and I apologize, I did 50-50. On the Barrington Plat Amendment, I got the right zone. On this one, I put our old zone designation. Yeah, this one is multifamily medium, which with our new designation, it should be RM12 because there's 12 units allowed per net acre.
but it seems, it doesn't account for commercial,
Right.
really, right? But
And
it is.
in this particular zone, you can do home businesses, just like you can in other zones. And those home businesses may look like a commercial business. I mean, you may be a cosmetologist, or you may be an insurance agent and have your office there, but you have to do it as a home business. Even if it would have been designated as live work, and there was technically a separation or technically considered a commercial building, because of the zone it's sitting in, it still would have had to been owner occupied to operate the business.
So because of that zone, it is like some of the others, where
Right,
they could rent the bottom and live upstairs.
yeah. Now, if it was literally across the street to the west,
Right.
sitting in that development, then that development is in a mixed use zone. And so they definitely could have an independent commercial business on the bottom and an independent residential unit on the top if they chose to do that on the west side of the street in that zone. But in this particular zone, it's got to be owner occupied.
I spoke with Aaron Walker. Thanks, Scarlett, for pointing me to it. Because I wanted an answer to the same question. What is it that's different? And he said that primarily as a live work kind of unit, it requires a sprinkler system and a separate entrance for the business and a separate entrance for the home living space. And so there's really, I mean, there's some costs associated with that. That maybe not everybody who wants to buy one of those units would like to pay. And there's very little restriction by not having it be a live work arrangement from them having a business in their
Right,
unit.
yes, they can still do that.
So That's basically what I learned from Aaron. And, you know, that makes sense to me. So that was helpful for me.
So to understand, if I understand you correctly, in this zone, they don't have to have the sprinklers if they're running a business.
Correct.
They don't have to. The one
Because
across
they're operating as a home business.
Home
They're
business.
not operating as a
commercial
commercial
business.
entity, an independent commercial entity.
But it's not the zoning controls, building code.
Right.
When it comes to the live work restrictions, yes.
Right.
So basically, what we're looking at is we designate them. So why, well, if there's nothing else required different than the regular townhouses that are being built in there, townhomes, and all we're doing is a designation, is there added cost for it, for that?
That's
Okay. Anybody, any other questions for Scarlett? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. John, we'd love to invite you up, help us understand a little bit more.
Thank you. I'm John with Visionary Homes.
Thank you.
John Harris.
Yeah.
In terms of extra cost, really the whole purpose of this is to pull it out of the commercial code. And that does hold us to fire sprinklers, which is a significant cost.
Okay.
Fire sprinklers for the whole building or just,
The main floors, I understand the commercial section.
So okay. So because of that, with that designation, it's requiring those additional items to meet that commercial aspect of it.
Correct.
Even though but they couldn't rent it out. They couldn't rent it out, so it couldn't be under somebody else for that be necessary. Still home business, just like any of the other units in.
That's correct.
The one question I had is does the HOA allow for signage in the windows if somebody in one of the other units wanted to operate their business?
I don't
Operate a
believe
business.
I don't believe it does. I'll honestly have to go back and look at the CCNRs for that. But I don't think so. I think for this building on the frontage, the CCNRs do allow for that, in accordance, of course, with the city's signage regulation.
My only concern was that when this was presented at first and it was discussed and everything, it was a great idea. We compared it to other things up north. In fact, several of us went up and looked at what was there and how it looked and what we liked about it, what we didn't. And the fact that it's more commercial, it's another blend or a way of having commercial. And now now it's not. And it seems like the reason that it's not is to get it out of the commercial code because of the requirements of that and will reduce costs. Is there any other reason than that?
No, that's the only reason, but functionality won't change. We'll still have that commercial and residential appeal, should the homeowner decide to go that route.
Yeah, if they wanted to do a home business, if you allow signage.
Signage is allowed for those that we used to be work live.
So if
Signage
we
is
take
allowed.
away that designation, does it lose that signage? It becomes just like any other townhouse in there. Or am I wrong about that?
I believe it does allow for signage.
That's up to your HOA. If your
Yeah.
HOA says that, sorry,
Yeah.
like,
I
have to
believe we
follow
need
my
some
own.
clarity then from the CCNR.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I understand because of that cost issue and things, and that would be substantial. I understand that. And if the individuals, because it is a home work up environment where they live there, and it's not the opposite code where they could live upstairs and rent it out. So they've got to live. They only have to live there and could run a business. If we take that away, that is like any of the other townhouses, then I think the restriction of signage, it falls back to that they can't, these individuals here are just like all the other townhouses in there. What is my signage opportunity? What can I do to promote that? Because I think that was the real benefit from it, was that they could have a business that could be seen from the road, that could draw them in, whether it was an accounting business or hairstylist or something along those lines. I think that one guy has a little grocery store, a little shop up there.
Wolf's Den.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. His signage is a little on the wild side, but other than that, you know, I like the idea that people had that opportunity, which brought more stuff, more commercial stuff here. So I'd like to, that's my only thing about it is I'd like that, if it goes back to that designation, do they still have the right? Is it a small 1-by-1, foot 12-inch by 12-inch sign that can be in the window? That's not really something, that's not taking advantage of the benefit we saw
As I
before.
remember, don't regulate the signage above and beyond what the city's requirements are for signage. I'm not entirely sure about the CCNRs with other units, but as it relates to that building, the signage is allowed because you're right, that's kind of essential to,
Yeah, it was a nice
the
feature
idea.
to it, yeah.
It is a nice
Yeah.
feature.
And I just go back, when it was first presented, it was good,
Mhm.
and we supported that quite a bit.
And we've also gone through quite a bit to design the landscaping in front of that unit so that
Right.
it can look more like an urban garden and
And
a quaint entrance to those.
right. Anybody other questions? I kind of
Sure.
over there.
Could you, yeah, I know.
Chair,
Don't go very far though, stay right here. I just,
Chair,
Michael and John.
can I do one little rabbit hole for just a second?
Sure.
As a training opportunity exercise. We have on side of our city council agendas and minutes, because we have several that are new. Several were not here during that kind of a discussion. I appreciate you brought that up. But if you come here under searchable minutes and database, so we have inside of here, and I don't know if we've got them all updated, but we can come to the planning commission, past planning commissions, and you can search the minutes. So I'm going to search.
These are the minutes that make us look more intelligent than we really are. Minutes that actually existed at the time we said this to.
These are the minutes you approved. These are approved minutes, so I take it word for it. So if I type that in, live, work, it was much quicker when I did it there. So it has an exact match. So if you wanted to know the time, the meeting that was at, this was discussed almost 2 years ago on October 14th of 2020. And you could come in here and see that the discussion was a proposed rezone, that you can see who came from Visionary Homes, that they talked about affordable housing in regards to the project, and that they discussed the lived work units and how similar the units would be to North Logan and Lucan Parking. So at that point, limited, just wanted to give a information for some of the rest that are fairly new. I thought that would be something to.
So we can see when the plat was approved. Here,
Yeah.
was it about June?
Well, this one's under the proposed rezone. When they came for a rezone, that's when they discussed live work. Some of these other ones are loose matches. I didn't go through. I just wanted to show a little rabbit hole for the benefit of a group that may not have been here 2 years ago. So I apologize. Thank you for the.
I appreciate
Thank you
that
for
very much.
entertaining the rabbit hole.
I think it was approved in June of 2021.
Question. With these being approved as commercial live work units, was there going to be parking in front of those between the street and the units?
Parallel parking, there's parking on the street. And then behind the unit, there's also parking above and beyond, of course,
For the business,
for the business, yes.
and but that's not available for other units, other townhomes.
Well, it's public parking. It's open parking.
But
And
it's
it's
close.
not,
It's closest to these.
it is closest to those. You can see the section right there labeled parking behind the units.
So these are the ones. These are the ones that were previous live work that you're trying to propose to change.
Right.
This is where the parking is, right where we would have expected visitors to enter on this side. Yes. And that's where the parking is.
And then, of course, there's street parking all along that curve.
And that parking is probably already in, or will stay.
It's in.
Parking, okay. So that stays, and it's available for all the townhomes in there. So again, that was something, I just go back to, it was a really great idea. I think it even says in the notes that Ryan pulled up, which I think is a great thing. Because we're always trying to look back and so at certain things. So thank you for that. But I
I have a question.
sure, go right ahead.
John, could you tell us how significant of a cost it may be for the residents of the building?
Significant.
Yeah, the
For
difference
which?
between the live work and the traditional townhome.
I don't have that number. I'm sorry. Couldn't even tell you the cost of the fire sprinkler system between all the units as a whole. There are multiple costs. Taxes were brought up, and I don't know about that because that wasn't a consideration in bringing us forward.
Well, and I would think the value would be increased by having those benefits. That this is a townhome that could be lived in, and you'd have a legitimate opportunity to run a business out of, and it meets the building codes for a commercial type business. So I think certainly taxes may be more and things like that, but the value of it should be higher too.
It could. In the market right now, I think it behooves us to even try to decrease the cost. This was brought forward before the significant downturn. But I think this is all the more important at this point to try to reduce costs. It doesn't reduce function in any way, shape, or form in terms of commercial benefit.
Sure.
Well, it does.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason, that for a commercial office that we would want the increased sprinkler.
Keep in mind that this is still zoned as a residential zoning. I understand we're talking about commercial. This is home occupied businesses, not full commercial, because this is still zoned as a multifamily residential zoning, and RM12. So anyway, just so that you keep in mind that this is not general commercial zoning, that we're not changing the zoning. This is what would normally still be allowed with inside of the other townhouse developments by a zoning designation. I wanted to clarify that before we went too far into commercial side of things. When you start talking about commercial, this is not a commercially zoned area. So there's still some restriction to that.
Are there limitations in the zone for how many home offices can be, within a certain area or anything like that?
No, we do not have that in the zoning. Any unit within the zone has the same opportunity for home business that any other unit has. The advantage for these 6 or 7, whatever they are, was the location on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
So even if they had the sprinklers and the building code met for live work, they couldn't do a commercial type business.
Commercial is defined by the zoning ordinance as opposed to home-based work as defined by the ordinance.
Okay, so that's part of my question. My other question is that then that means that any townhome in the whole unit can have the same kind of signs.
But we don't know
Because
that.
there is no, I mean, if we take away
From
the
a simple
live-work
city perspective.
relationship, you take away the live-work relationship, then it is a townhome. They want to build townhomes there, and they all ought to be townhome size signs, I would think.
Well, then CCNRs are going to control that as
Yeah.
well as the city signing ordinance.
The city signing ordinance won't be different because the zoning ordinance is by the zone, the designation, and both all the townhomes in this zone are all zoned the same. This is not a separately zoned. It doesn't have more rights because it's zoned differently. It is only specified on the plat that it was reserved for live work. And I mean, it's not changing a zoning, and it's not allowing more that direction. I think sometimes some of your questions are a different zoning question, and that we're not changing the zoning. So
It's the same zone.
those two buildings, whether townhouses in in over here to the east or to the west, they're zoned the same. Now, if the individual homeowner associations define differently, they can put more restrictions on top of the city restrictions. So that may happen. So that's why you're hearing this. It may differ because that homeowner association that is over that building may have more restrictions than the city, but all have the same city restrictions. It's whether they have further made that restriction. Does that help?
Yeah,
Maybe not.
I mean, to a certain extent. So here's my concern is that we have it set up to have home live work relationship, which would drive some safety measures for fire suppression and those types of things, which would be required. And now we want to eliminate those costs, but still have all the benefits of a live-work relationship that's offered by that zone. Is that true?
Well, I think what's interesting is that the businesses that could be in the front could be anywhere in the community. In any of those
could be
towns.
in any of the
Yeah,
towns.
that's what throws me, that Aaron Walker, that we have this requirement for these up front, but there's no business that could go into those that couldn't go into any of the others.
Right.
So why aren't they all required to have sprinklers?
That is an interesting point, and it's the work-live designation. It's strictly a label.
It's
that
the
pushes it into
designation.
commercial.
Yes.
So by stripping that designation, it eliminates that requirement
Out of the building.
of the building code.
Because the building code has a restriction of that name.
Okay.
Right, and the building code then drives the sprinklers.
And this is a zoning body.
But it's not, it wouldn't be allowed in this zone. It would have to be rezoned to have a commercial business.
An independent commercial business that
Right.
was not owner occupied, yes, you would have to have a
That'd be
different
included.
zones that
Yeah.
can.
And that's
designation
really
for that.
the intent of the live work designation, is to have a commercial business, and talking to Aaron.
Well, and I think the real key was that these units, because they have the frontage, could have the opportunity, nobody would have to, they could buy it and it'd just be their home. But if those that wanted to, if you're gonna run a business and you want, there's a lot of traffic right there, great opportunity for promoting that business and generating business probably. So I don't have a problem with that. The only thing I come back to is the signage thing now. So, because again, I can live in anywhere in here, whether over here or over here. I can apply for a business license and I can operate a business whether I'm here or over here. The difference is a home business, yes,
As defined by the
by the,
home business zoning codes.
right, which is,
It's gonna apply to all of them.
well, applies to all of them, okay? So there's no difference there. The only other difference I see is because we were specific in that this, and maybe it's through the CCNRs, that there was more signage allowed. There was more liberal opportunity for signage because they were business that faced the frontage than over here. So I don't know if you separate that differently in the HOA or the CCNRs, but I would,
I don't think there was any other ability for additional signage. I think the opportunity to have signage visible would have been the case only because it is on the outside, but they could have put it the same, but an interior, I mean, if you have it on the, let's say it's on 84 and you have a sign on your front door.
yeah,
Well, 84 is interior and doesn't have the traffic that 73 would have. They could have this, let's take CCNR out.
Okay.
And let's take all restrictions that they could further restrict beyond the city. The frontage signage on 84 and on 73 are the same. There isn't a difference, but 73, because it is on a busier road, has more visibility. And so if you are going to have live work, you want more visibility. So at that point, that's the only, you're not gaining any more signage. You couldn't have any more signage than you could have had on the other buildings. Now, the CCNRs could restrict beyond, but from a city perspective, we're not allowing anything more from either one of these.
It's interesting because I remember I went up and looked at the ones in North Logan. I photographed them and so forth, because that signage was different than if somebody was operating a home business inside the thing. I don't even think I saw any signs on anybody's thing inside, but the ones that had the frontage certainly did.
Right.
And-
Significant signage.
Yeah, and it was significant. And so I was under the impression that if somebody bought one of these, that would be an option. So they would, if I understand right, you're saying from the
They still
city's
have to match
perspective.
the same zoning.
Yeah.
From our zoning, those aren't different. Building wise is different. I think the understanding of parking, when they
Yeah.
wanted live work, we said, you'll need to have parking accessible for those, because if you'll remember, the business would be on the main floor, so
Right.
there wouldn't be parking under it, because that would be kind of a business space. So they would operate a business out of where their parking may have been. So rather than have kind of think about this as the model home at the gateways down below. It operates a business out of one of those, right? The garage is glass and they have a door, commercial door going in, but it's still the same unit above. The garage has changed to have a more of a street frontage. Now, the question I would have for you is, you approved it knowing it was live work. There was a good justification of the time for that. Has that changed? I don't know. And because they want to make a difference here, is that changing what you wanted when you approved the zoning or approved those? If that's changed and you say, yeah, we don't really need the live work set aside, that's what they would, because they're going to look a little different if they had that glass frontage.
Right.
That would have a little difference to a look. Although I think they could have picked, even then they could have picked either. Yes, is that true?
And nothing about the frontage of the buildings was changed in this
Okay.
request.
Because the garage is behind it, on the
Right,
ground
the
level, the
garage
garage
is
is
behind
behind it, so.
And then
If
the
you
parking
eliminate-
here
yeah,
is the same
yeah.
as the parking in
Yeah.
North Logan.
Yeah.
And whether or not you approve this alteration in verbiage, it doesn't change the signage, whether you keep work live or remove it. Signage is still,
Doesn't affect signage, doesn't affect
doesn't affect the
parking,
use.
that kind of thing like that. The only
It's
thing-
affecting loan. Yes,
Yeah,
loan
it affects loan
and
and it
potential
affects-
building because of the
Fire sprinkler.
designation of live work.
And John, what about the internal floor plan? Does it affect that as well?
That's not changed.
So the garage, the garage is something new. There was not a garage in the live work, or there was?
There was.
Okay, it's still there.
Nothing about the building has changed other
So
than,
that's not a separation between the live and work area.
and no, that separation hasn't changed either. See, when we submitted it, it was approved, but then it came out that no, actually you need some fire sprinklers. And we started to recognize that there was costs that we didn't notice and that weren't brought up at the time. That's what spurred this.
Is
Well, how
the,
can we get away from the fire sprinklers? Well, you're in a commercial.
is the North Logan one that we spoke of, the Wolfpack one, is that also a visionary project?
No.
Were those live work, Michael?
Um,
Do you know, do they live in?
Live work style, I don't know
Yeah.
if it was required.
yeah,
They
I
live
don't
in
know,
it.
but,
Live in it.
yeah.
Okay.
They live in it, yeah.
That's the only example we can find. There's nobody else, there's nothing else you've seen, John, in regards to comparing these live works with other live works besides one of them.
Not yet.
And we're under the impression that the sprinklers are required because it's designated live work. Because none of the other townhouses are, but because of that, that's why Aaron Walker, the fire marshal, has said this way. So we eliminate that designation, which is what you're asking for. I can still run a business, a home business out of those units. I could put up signage based off HOA, CCNR, City of Providence restrictions for what they allow. Apply for that. So all of that goes that way.
I have another question. Is there, if somebody was having a business, a live work business, and they park in the back, is there an entrance for that business? Or they walk through the
Not
garage?
from the back. There never was.
Is there
There are sidewalks that will go from that patio around the building
to the front,
to the back road, to the front
to
of
the
the
front,
building.
where they would, which is the front, the actual front of the house, and that's where the business.
That was the same way in North Logan too. They accessed it from the front.
And the road, this Gateway Drive, and we have parking allowed there.
He said that, I did not.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because we took a drive this last week about.
I did not say that.
There's gonna be a bike lane here on that road.
But there is lots of parking in the back just for commercial use.
Well, there's same parking
For guests.
for any one of these
Yes.
units.
Right, that's what I mean. There's,
Right? I mean,
there's guest parking just for commercial. I don't like, nobody likes the idea of relying on street side parking for anything, even though it happens. But there is specific parking for those commercial, for the commercial side of these buildings.
Here?
Yes,
Or in North-
right behind the units.
They
Work
they
side.
put that parking there, that public parking. It could benefit them or anybody else in the town.
Oh, I
in the-
see.
In the,
So they could have taken that parking out if we'd approved this.
I thought we were looking right at finding those.
So I don't actually see anything in the letter from Aaron Walker regarding sprinklers. Basically, it just says that he approves it being changed from live work to townhome, right?
Yeah, I called him because I didn't know what the difference was. I couldn't find it in our code. And he said it's a building code, and so that's why he's involved. And it wasn't part of the letter because he's just approving it because it's okay to do. But I wanted to understand what the difference was, what the requirement, building requirement.
and you feel comfortable about that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it's gonna save some money.
Yeah.
What I would be concerned about is that we sold it as one thing, being a commercial type business that's different than just a home business.
No,
In order to do this,
you couldn't have a different business than a home business.
I understand that, but I believe that Visionary thought they could. And this,
I think it was that if you could have your home business and the benefit you got was the frontage, the promotion of that business and everything else. Frontage on the gateway signage, the signage that becomes that kind of thing, just like the North Logan. I think that's what it was.
okay, so my concern is that it was designated as live work when it was approved before. Now we're gonna cut costs, but there's nothing gonna change about what they can do with the code.
So
And so.
to kind of add to what you're
Making
saying,
switch to me.
well, to kind of add to what you're saying, and maybe not maybe switch because I don't want to, but what the proposal was when that's why I searched the minutes to kind of say, okay, when did we last talk about this? The conversation was going from commercial general district for that property. That property was at that point zoned commercial general, so it would have allowed any commercial businesses in that. And the request was to go from commercial general to multifamily medium. Now, if part of that consideration, we have had other examples that when they went from commercial general to multifamily X, that they would either leave some as commercial general. We see that, we did that twice on the highway, or
Because, or not because,
Blackstones and
Blackstones and
Han
Han.
Peterson.
So on Peterson and on that, we left the frontage of that highway to be one zone so that although the back could be changed, the front was left. I can't speak for this because I don't see that in the minutes, so I'm not speaking for that. But just as an example, those two are left as zoning in the front as the highway, and behind became allowed to be a residential zone. This went from commercial to multifamily. If it was a consideration, and I can't say it was, if it was a consideration that that would be a transitional building, then maybe that's the case. At that point, the question is, if that was or if it wasn't, do you at this point just want them to be townhouses? Because if you approve a change, that's what they will be with the option. I mean, they can still do at-home businesses in any of them, and these are clearly closer to the street. And if there's going to be anybody that wants to do it, that's probably where they would like to do it. But is it worth the requirement of sprinkler and other lending requirements to force them to stay where they're at, or do you open up that restriction and allow them to proceed? It may be more naturally rather than forced. Is that? I don't mean to step on any toe there.
No, just.
I wasn't trying.
Just zip it. You're good.
Thank you.
Let's go on.
I'd like to just retract my bait and switch statement. I think that we are mismatched between the zoning and the building code. Building code appears to be more of a commercial type of arrangement, which is the idea I got from Aaron. And it's not a commercial zone. So therefore, there's no benefit to that because it's just a townhome. I mean, it can only be a townhome business, home business. So it's really a mismatch.
Well, I think the idea was in the spirit of the idea of what we were after, because we want more commercial. We want as much commercial stuff in the right places as we can get in Providence because we're running out of room. The idea, and we went and looked at what they've done in other places, and it was good. I think that was a big part of it. I don't think anybody was looking to bait and switch anything at all. I was there. I remember it all. I think it was very interactive, and we were just looking at what opportunities are there. And really, other than the location of it, I have the same benefits as everybody else in there and all of that. I have an advantage over anybody else by being on the frontage. And that's what we liked about it, and they still do. And so I don't think anybody really knew, because we hadn't got certainly into the building plans and all that stuff at that point, I don't believe. So we would have known those things about the requirements for the sprinklers because of this live work title that made everything sound really good. So I think as you get into it, that's what's discovered, and that's why you're here today. And so,
John, would you like to sit down? We might have some more questions.
I'm good standing on.
We need to discuss it here.
Okay.
So
You're standing there, then we need to discuss it there.
if
If you
unless,
sit down, we might have some more questions.
unless you have anything else you want to share with us, John. Okay, all right. I'll open it up then for discussions amongst the council members.
It sounds to me, just from what you were saying, Michael, and again, I am newer here, but it sounds like the intent was really to have these designated as live work spaces so that they could be businesses. I just would like to remind the commission of our vision. There's a section that says that we are providing more opportunities to live, work, shop, and recreate in Providence. I think we do have a lot of townhomes already, and we don't have many that are this designation of live work.
Okay, any other comment?
My comment to that is that I agree with that, but I think that it ought to be that frontage area should be, the zone should be changed to allow for commercial business to have a real business. So they're in alignment. So the building code and the zoning is in alignment with business. Good business.
Is that something that we could do here? Is that something that we could recommend or propose?
There's no proposal, so it'd be hard to make a recommendation. And it would be just simply a recommendation to the council.
That would
You
have to,
have a public hearing. and
Yes.
there's a
I think it'd have to go back through an application that
They
they'd have
would.
to come and apply for that.
they'd have to apply for a
I'm not sure for
rezoning.
reason.
I don't think that's of any interest, right?
Don't you want to put an amusement park down there? We'd love an amusement park here in town.
We're open to it, funding public.
Private donation.
Okay, Brian?
I feel very strongly that we talked about it, we worked at it. These are commercial, they were intended to be commercial. We got the warm fuzzies. There's mixed use across the street. There's orthodontics office, kitty corner from here. There's a church next door. This fit really well as far as commercial goes. And I feel that it ought to stay, that these ought to be live work. I'm thinking about the farmer's insurance agent that might move into one of these, and a very large sign in their window. I'm not sure that's going to be allowed, except by the homeowners association. But I'm not asking. And I think it ought to stay because it does fit. The live work does fit with that area. It's the biggest commercial part of the town, and there's going to be 2 more commercial buildings that they're underway building, and then we've got it's all mixed use across the street, so that's all commercial. So I lean very much towards leaving it just the way that it is. I think that since it's got a commercial aspect to it, that the value of them should be quite a bit higher if there's a market for them. I don't know. We're not into the market here, but I think it fits well, as Shelley said, with the intention of or the vision of our commission. That the live work, this would have, I think, continue to give us hope for the live work. There are so many units down there, and they're so big, and there's so many people in the city that don't want townhomes. I'm not sure we're ever going to see another townhome or apartment building built because of the way that our public meetings have gone. And so I think it ought to stay live work so that they get commercial opportunity. It's a great place to have small business.
Thank you. Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I have to tell you,
Joe, you might want the microphone.
I prefer leaning back. I'm sorry, but I represent a lot of private property owners, and I got into the business with Pleasant View City telling my client who had a gravel pit what they needed to do with the gravel pit, and they wanted it sloped 2 to 1 and locking in $300 million worth of gravel, and we had to sue them to get them to understand they were taking our client's property. I agree with you, Brian, 100%. That these are a great location to have a transition from the commercial across the street into the commercial and residential. That made sense when we did it. But I also am pro property owner and in terms of their decision to use their property, how they want to use it. And I think myself, I'm not judging anybody else here, but myself as an appointed public official, I think, they have a constitutional right to use their property as they see fit within the zoning laws. I think the zoning laws allows this. Where I'm hung up on it is I haven't really heard good cause. And I don't know what the good cause for doing it would be. And so, I'm somewhat perplexed on that. I think those are my comments.
Super. Thank you very much. Bob Washburn, do you have anything to add?
I think I've already said it. I think we're out of alignment with the zone, but
Bob Hickey, and
Do I get to make a comment?
I'd be happy to.
I just have some questions because there's been a lot of questions about signage. What is the city policy or regulation for signage for that street?
Again, it goes with the zone and the type of sign, not necessarily the street. And a
Right,
home
I
bus-
understand that, but
And I think it's really important, you can leave these as live work units, but they cannot function as a commercial, independent commercial business. Even if you leave that designation on there, they cannot do that without a zone change. So I just want that understood, because I don't think that was understood clearly maybe 2 years ago. But the signage that is allowed is a maximum 3 square foot sign.
total for that.
A home business,
Resident.
a home business sign can be a maximum of 3 square feet, yes.
And where can it be placed?
I couldn't get my phone to go that big on the code, on the chart, so, I can be placed, I know it can be placed in the front yard, it can be placed in the window, so,
And it can be permanent?
yeah, it could be a 3 foot, it could be no bigger than 3 square feet, but it could be a permanent sign, yes.
And that would be true for anybody that lives in that.
That's true for anybody that operates a home business in any zone.
In any zone.
Hmm.
My experience says as soon as you put one up like that, that the county assessor will come right in and reassess the, move part of it.
I don't know how the county assessor would assess. So,
Standard.
And my other question is, between the two designations, the way it's designated right now in the request, does the city, Visionary Home saves money? Does the city lose money by the type of business that might enter into one of those units?
it has to be,
Anybody has a thought?
it has to be a home business.
It would be the same business that would operate here that could operate anywhere in that.
So then my thought would be, if the city doesn't lose money, because it's the same type business, and I'm not sure that and I'm not voting, but that the commission should be concerned about what the designation is as far as that, because the city's not going to lose money. There's no drawback from the city, it appears to me.
But the city does gain money from home businesses, is that correct?
Right, but it's again, the same amount with either designation, it appears.
Yeah, that's true.
But they would be further encouraged in this live work designation to have a home business.
That's true.
That was right. They were primed for that. And that's what we all liked of what we saw in North Logan. That it was,
I don't know if a fire sprinkler cap and ceiling
Yeah.
would change anything.
I agree. I agree. That's why I don't understand. We can't run any different business than we could in any other one. So it's because of that title that was put to it.
If it was in a different zone, if it was in the mixed use zone, then you could run a different business.
Right.
If they were built as live work units. If it was in the mixed use zone and they weren't built, and like over here, those townhomes in Danny's situation, those townhomes can have home businesses in them because they're not designated as live work. They're not built to have a commercial designation. But they are in a zone that if they would have been built with the commercial designation, they could have. So there's two things at play here. There's the structure of the building and there's the zone. And Bob Washburn really said it best when he said there's conflict, because the structure makes it look like you could do a commercial business, an independent commercial business. The zone restricts you to a home business, but that doesn't mean that that home business couldn't look very much like a commercial business. I mean, the cosmetologist could have their salon set up and they live upstairs and they do their salon downstairs. So if in the future there was going to be some changes of zoning designations, then the live work might come into play. But as long as our code prohibits commercial businesses in multifamily zones or that type of thing, then they can have home businesses as designated in our code, but they can't have a commercial business as designated in our code. So I don't know whether today, probably there's no difference, but if something were to change in the future, then that could have an impact.
So why would we want live work at all?
Because it's gonna be really expensive to put the sprinklers in after it's already built.
I agree, but then the whole idea, what I've learned today is that there's no advantage to making it live work.
Correct.
If there was no live work there, you guys would go ahead and build it, questions asked. But I don't see any advantage. There is a tax advantage for the owner, the homeowner, that their taxes will be significantly less. But I can't see any difference, like you said, Bob, there's just no difference.
There's no point in that live work designation in the current zoning.
So let's take a look at live work designation and see if it even ought to be in our code at all. Well, understand it.
It's a building code requirement, it's not in Providence City code. that I
That's my
can find.
understanding, right?
That's correct. It's a building code designation, not a Providence City designation.
So place the live work on it. Did this board, this commission put live work on it?
I believe we did, yeah.
Okay.
And along with Providence, we were new to the concept. We didn't notice it would pull it into a different code.
Okay, so that your idea then was to market
Not
them differently than a regular townhome. And at the time it looked great.
Yeah, but that marketing still applies, it's accurate.
Right.
But we didn't know the impact of what the structural impact would be, the building code requirements. I don't believe anybody knew that at that time. So Shelley, if I could ask you, taking the position that there's really no benefit to a live work designation that we've talked about here, but from the standpoint of the vision of what we had, like you talked about, and being able to do that, if we granted the request and had that live work designation removed, those can still be home-based businesses, live and work there. They could still promote them because of the frontage and take advantage that way. It benefits. So that's the benefit to it. We would still, I think they could be marketed that, look here, these are on the frontage and you can have your home-based business here. You could do really well. And that would still keep with that vision of what Providence has. Would you agree?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And Joe, from your standpoint, it would be the homeowner property rights and being able to do what they would like with their property? You feel that?
I'm not talking about the homeowner right now. I'm
Talking about the developer, yeah, that's doing it.
The property owner that wants to make the change. Not to add to the problem, but maybe just give you some clarification. If you want to take a look, I pulled up in municipal code and the definition section includes the definition of a home business in 1-3-2. You have to scroll down on it. And then it also has a definition of home businesses under 3-4-5. And 3-4-5 refers you to 10-6. And at that point in time, I can't find where home businesses are defined in that use chart. But the thing that I read was that that a home business, which the property is subject to, whether or not it's classified live use or just non-live use, can't change the general character of the neighborhood. It has to be incidental to the primary use of it. So, that helps you understand the
It's
nature
gonna
of
be a home and it's still, that's its main function. Then the advantage to the frontage is having the opportunity to expose your business greater. And I guess my feeling is I agree with what John mentioned about at the time we looked at this and did it. I truly believe it was a cooperative effort with the city and the developer of, let's take advantage of this idea. And this is a perfect opportunity where people could run a business there. And so I think that was supported and that was good. And some of the details that came out of that by giving that designation, I don't think we didn't know at that time. I honestly think we didn't know that at that time. And it probably would have made a difference then had that been known. It probably would have been, let's just keep them as townhomes because they can run the same kind of business. I really believe that. I really think that is true from how well we did here. So,
Joe, do you think then that we have found good cause with the sprinklers for this request?
I don't know. I'm not trying to, good cause is what you want to propose in the resolution. I was having a problem with the good cause and was hoping the developer would propose an easy solution as to what their good cause is. What I've heard is cost related. And that the economy has taken a hit on interest rates and to make these units more affordable and save the fire sprinkler system, which I'm not a builder, so I don't know what the cost is, but I would hate to have to put one in my commercial building in Logan, and I'm grandfathered out of it based on the age of the building.
I think a good cause is that if we remove the live work designation and we bring the zoning and the building code in line.
okay. Does anybody have any other comments? John, is there anything you would like to add before we wrap it up?
I'm good, thank you.
I would entertain a motion then from the committee. Well, I like what Bob just said.
I'll do it.
There you go.
Okay, I'd like to propose that we approve item 2, Providence Gateway subdivision phase N amended final plat as proposed, and the good cause is to bring into alignment the zoning and the building codes associated with that property.
Subject to the findings of fact,
Subject to the findings of fact,
conclusions of law,
conclusions of law, all the other
and conditions.
and conditions.
I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, John.
Thank you for your time.
You bet. Thank you.
We have a hard time understanding what John understood.
John, I had a real good idea because I have a child that, I was trying to encourage to get out there and buy one of those because the opportunity for the exposure for marketing.
Yeah.
She's only 8 years old right now. But anyway.
I got one that's 18 and almost done with cosmetology school, and I'd love to fit in there. So, but she's going to be gone for the next year and a half.
John, have you sold a lot of those units in that development? the alarm sold already.
Things are slowing down everywhere now, but
Yeah.
the sales there have been very strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scarlett, I haven't seen our others show up.
Before we move on to the other one, it's just, so when I get to 10.6, what I have to do is go across the top and find the zone that this property in is, and then if there's a yes, that type of home-based business would be allowed in that zoning.
Correct.
So let me pull it up so that we can, as far as people can see what it is. If it has a P, it's permitted, a C is conditional, and blank is not permitted.
Okay.
So you would find the, find that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be updated, but, so at that point, these are the items that are permitted, and then if it has a C, so they could do a bed and breakfast, so, they could not do a hotel or motel. They'd be permitted to do some, but not, I mean, that's what we do. For the rest, I'm sure. I would, chair left. I would just, chair is aware of this, but when an applicant doesn't show, we generally don't hear their item without them.
Thank you for your advice. I'll take that under consideration. Chairman has stepped out for a moment. He's going to step back in again, and I'm going to encourage him to get this done tonight. He can do what he wants to do. I just want to say that I want to remind everybody here and instruct Mr. Henke that if we get out of here before 8 o'clock, since he is the junior on the commission, that we all get hamburgers next time, right? If we got to come 15 minutes early, but you cover that.
Can I change that to milkshake?
Oh, yeah, you can change it to milkshakes. It'd be a great new tradition, wouldn't it? We've been here at 11 o'clock at night, and the last two, like this one, have gone fairly quickly. This next one, I want to just discuss it openly here for a moment. We have seen this one before. I don't know under what context we saw it before, but if I remember right, it was something similar to this.
Not this
I
one,
think so.
Brian.
Is it around the corner and down a block?
I think so, yes.
Okay, and they wanted a bigger building envelope. Okay, isn't this a bigger building envelope?
That's what it creates, yes.
Okay. Never mind. That's
I
all.
can't remember the other one up in that area, so. I
It's, okay. When we're online, when I'm online at work and talking with people, and I've been there for 3 hours, we have what we call a biology break. And so we're going to finish our biology break and invite Michael Fortune to go take over as chairman.
So,
Yeah, sure.
I was hoping you would wrap things up for me.
No, I told him, we talked about keeping it going.
All right. So to come back to item 1, we usually in the past have, if the representatives aren't here, we don't hear it.
Yeah.
So I would put to the members, should we table this to allow for the representatives to be present to answer the questions? I think it's going to be another one that would receive a fair amount of questions and discussion needed to justify it, and I think it's important that they're here for that. How does everyone else feel?
Sounds good.
Shelley?
Yeah, I agree.
After reading the amended final plat information and the staff notes, I feel like it's not very complicated and that we have to go ahead and consider it. It looks really straightforward and that they're not asking anything out there. It seems like it's all based on, they've defined what the road's going to be up there and where the sidewalk's going to be, and they want to change the envelope because of that.
They already have a sidewalk.
They do, there is a sidewalk there.
I would argue that it does not match the 66-foot right of way that is city standard.
Oh, gosh. Heard that
Certainly
for
does.
2 weeks.
That's a collector road.
As a collector road,
It is.
it is
it
not
narrow.
matching, it is not matching the 66-foot wide right of way that is the city standard. And when parcels or other things are adjusted, we generally require them to come in the standard. This is not doing that.
Okay, so we're gonna, ask Ryan to stand with the developer or the homeowner to defend this position when it finally comes before us.
Well, and I also have the issue of the idea of if we made a lot line, setback requirement adjustment for this situation, how many more will people come in and say, well, I want to get this in on my house or this addition? And
That's why we wait for the applicant to be here with us.
so is everyone in favor? Do we need to make a vote, take a vote to table it or? Okay, all in favor of tabling this motion?
You need your motion.
Oh,
Can somebody make it?
I will make a motion that we, table agenda item 1 for the applicant to be present.
can we have a second?
Second.
The second, first motion by Shelley Neeser, second by Bob Washburn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. All right.
Just so you know, I intentionally abstained.
Did you?
Yeah, I know Alex pretty well,
Okay.
and I don't think I've got a conflict, but on this motion, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. All right. With that, I think we've come to the end. Is there any business that anyone feels needs to be brought forward other than to close the meeting?
Yeah, because we get an update. So we close the meeting, for 30th, planning commission. At the time is approximately 7:23.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
That is a motion by Brian Marvel, second by Bob Washburn. The meeting is adjourned. Well, I should vote on it.